in your pocket right now is a piece of technology everyone assumes is pure American design and pure Chinese assembly. Cupertino draws it. Shenzhen builds it. That's the story most people carry around without ever questioning it. But there's a whole layer in between that nobody talks about. Someone has to test the sensor that dims your screen. Someone has to package the chip that manages your battery. And someone has to catch the one bad chip in 10 million before it ever reaches you. Because that single defect is what turns into a recall that costs a company its name. That layer runs through the Philippines, not as a footnote, as infrastructure, quiet, uncredited, and, until a few weeks ago, almost invisible to the people using the phones it helps build. Stick around for number one, because it's not a factory. It's one guy sitting in the same garage club meetings as Steve Jobs, decades before the iPhone existed, and a piece of his brain is still running inside the phone in your hand right now. Number 6, the chip that quietly powers your charger. Ever had a phone that charges weird? Fast one day, crawling the next, warm in your pocket for no reason? There's almost always a tiny chip behind that. And a huge share of those chips get assembled and tested about 90 minutes south of Manila. Every phone lives or dies by how well it manages power, how fast it charges, how it doesn't overheat, how the battery doesn't degrade after a year of abuse. A huge share of the small, unglamorous chips that do that job, voltage regulators, LED drivers, discrete power semiconductors, get assembled and tested at ROHM's plant inside the People's Technology Complex Special Economic Zone in Carmona, Cavite. ROHM is a Japanese manufacturer with a long history in power devices, and its Philippine facility specializes in exactly the small signal and discrete components that end up controlling how safely and efficiently a phone handles electricity. It's not a headline industry. Nobody puts assembled in Carmona on a spec sheet. Discrete semiconductors like these don't get their own marketing slide at a product launch the way a new camera or a faster processor does. But they're exactly the kind of component that fails silently if it's cheap or poorly tested. A phone that charges unevenly, overheats in your pocket, or drains its battery in a year instead of 3. More often than not, traces back to a corner cut somewhere in this exact layer of the supply chain. And that's just the power chip. Once you start pulling this thread, an entire cluster of factories unravels south of Manila, and the next one isn't buried in your charger. It's staring at you every time you unlock your phone. Number 5, the sensor that knows when it's dark and the sensor that knows it's against your ear. Hold your phone up to your ear during a call and the screen goes black, so your cheek doesn't hang up on someone. Walk from a bright room into a dim one, and your screen brightness adjusts before you even notice it happened. Both of those tiny bits of magic run through ambient light and proximity sensors. And one of the world's biggest makers of exactly that kind of sensor, AM's OSRAM, runs a dedicated chip testing facility in Calamba City, Laguna. The company expanded that Calamba site specifically to test packaged sensor chips at high volume before they ship out to consumer electronics customers worldwide, and AMS itself describes its ambient light, proximity, and imaging sensors as core components built for smartphones and wearables. This is the part of the phone nobody thinks about, because it's not a chip you can point to on a teardown photo and say, that's the impressive one. It just quietly runs in the background, thousands of times a day, deciding what your screen does before you consciously ask it to. All of it, the final inspection, the taping, the shipping, happens out of a customs-free special economic zone about 2 hours south of Manila, running around the clock to keep up with global consumer electronics demand. That's your screen, but your camera has its own secret, and this one's got a name attached to it. A company you've probably never heard of, quietly deciding whether the chip behind your photos was good enough to ship. Number 4, the camera in your pocket goes through the Philippines before it goes into your phone. Every image sensor in a modern smartphone camera, the actual chip capturing the photo when you tap the shutter, has to be packaged and tested after it comes off the fabrication line, a process the industry calls OSAT, Outsourced Semiconductor Assembly and Test. Amkor Technology is one of the 2 or 3 biggest OSAT companies on Earth, and it runs plants in the Philippines, including a facility in Laguna Technopark in Biñan and operations in Muntinlupa, doing advanced packaging work that includes ball grid arrays, wafer-level chip-scale packaging, and critically, a meaningful global share of outsourced CMOS image sensor packaging. Amkor has also been named Qualcomm's Supplier of the Year for its chip assembly and test work, which tells you the scale and precision this kind of packaging demands. Translation: before the sensor that takes your photos gets soldered onto a circuit board in China or Vietnam, there's a real chance it passed through a clean room in the Philippines first, where workers under a microscope decided whether that specific chip was good enough to ship. Nobody puts that on a keynote slide. But here's where it stops being a handful of factories and starts looking like something nobody can just walk away from. Number 3, the chips that decide how your phone sounds and how it charges. The little ding your phone makes. The way your voice sounds clean on a call instead of tinny or distorted. A chip decides that. And the two companies that basically built that category, Analog Devices and Maxim Integrated, Maxim has since been folded into Analog Devices. Test them side by side out of Gateway Business Park in General Trias, Cavite. These two companies build the unglamorous analog backbone of consumer electronics. Audio codecs that shape the sound coming out of your phone's speaker, power management integrated circuits that regulate how current moves through the device, and mixed signal chips used in everything from wireless charging control to battery monitoring. Analog Devices has said Asia represents more than 40% of its total revenue, and its Philippines site sits alongside sister facilities in Penang, Malaysia, and Chonburi, Thailand, as part of one regional network built specifically to serve consumer electronics customers. This is the segment where the Philippines stops being a curiosity and starts being structural. You're no longer looking at one plant making one kind of component. You're looking at a cluster. General Trias next to Carmona, next to Calamba, next to Biñan. All inside roughly the same hour-and-a-half radius, all feeding the same global smartphone supply chain from different angles. 3 companies, 1 radius, 1 labor pool. And that cluster is only a fraction of something way bigger. Because it turns out this isn't a story about factories at all. It's a number, a ranking. And it's higher than almost anyone would guess. Number 2, the Philippines is the 9th largest chip exporter on Earth. And almost nobody in the audience for your phone's marketing knows it. 9th. Out of every country on Earth that makes chips, the Philippines is 9th. Ahead of countries you'd bet money on. And basically, nobody watching this right now knew that going in. According to the OECD's 2024 analysis of the Philippine semiconductor ecosystem, the Philippines is the world's 9th largest chip exporter, and semiconductors are the country's single largest export industry, representing over 70% of all electronic component exports. More than 500 semiconductor and electronics companies operate inside the country, including Texas Instruments, Analog Devices, ON Semiconductor, ST Microelectronics, NXP, and Microchip Technology, collectively responsible for roughly 10% of the entire world's assembly, testing, and packaging output. Integrated Microelectronics, or IMI, the electronics manufacturing arm of the Ayala Group, one of the Philippines' oldest conglomerates, is the largest electronics manufacturing services company in the country, running full production lines out of Laguna that handle everything from printed circuit board assembly to camera modules for global electronics brands. Work recognized in 2025 with a Gold Award for Best Managed Technology Company at Finance Asia's Regional Awards. At the country level, electronics products made up roughly 53 to 60% of total Philippine exports depending on the year, driven overwhelmingly by semiconductors and integrated circuits. That's the largest single thing the Philippines sells to the rest of the world. And most of the world buying phones with those components inside has no idea the country is in the picture at all. But here's the catch, and it's the same catch that runs under everything else on this list. The Philippines does the assembly, the testing, the packaging, the precision work that determines whether a chip is reliable enough to trust with your money and your data. It does not, for the most part, do the design. Industry estimates put the country's share of the actual global semiconductor value chain, the design and intellectual property side, where the real margins live, at around 5%. Everything the Philippines has built is essential. Almost none of it has its name on the box. But there's a catch buried in that number, one that decides whether the Philippines is essential or replaceable. And that exact catch is what makes the final name on this list so different. Because he didn't just help assemble the chip, he helped invent it. And you're about to find out he was in the room before Apple was even a company. Number 1. The man who put a piece of himself inside 9 out of 10 motherboards on Earth, and inside the DNA of the smartphone industry that came after. Dado Banatao was born in 1946 in Iguig, a farming town in Cagayan Valley, to a rice farmer and a housekeeper. He grew up without electricity or paved roads and reportedly walked barefoot to reach his elementary school. He earned an electrical engineering degree from Mapua Institute of Technology, briefly trained as a commercial pilot, and then took a job with Boeing in Seattle working on the 747 program, the opportunity that eventually got him to the United States. While pursuing his master's degree in electrical engineering at Stanford, he joined the Homebrew Computer Club, the same Silicon Valley hobbyist group that counted Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak among its members, years before either of them became a household name. What Banatao built afterward reads like a checklist of things sitting inside the device you're using to read this. In 1981, while at Seek Technology, he developed the first 10-megabit Ethernet CMOS chip, the piece of engineering that let entire computer networks run on a single board instead of the room-sized systems that came before it. In 1984 and 1985, he co-founded Chips and Technologies, whose integrated chipset for IBM's PCXT and PCAT computers helped kick off the modern PC industry, generating $12 million in revenue in its first 4 months, before the company eventually sold to Intel. In 1989, he co-founded S3 Graphics, whose single-chip GUI accelerator became so dominant that by the mid-1990s, it reportedly shipped in 9 out of 10 personal computer motherboards worldwide. What makes the path even more striking is how ordinary it looked at every single step. Before any of those breakthroughs, Banatao worked stints at National Semiconductor, Commodore International, Intersil, and Synertech. The unglamorous, job-to-job climb of an immigrant engineer building a resume, not the origin story of someone who already knew he'd be called a father of an industry. At Commodore, he designed the first single-chip, 16-bit microprocessor-based calculator, a small, forgettable-sounding project that turned out to be the proving ground for the chip design instincts he'd later apply to networking and graphics. It's easy to tell his story backward from the ending, as if the outcome was obvious. It wasn't. Every one of those jobs could have been the whole career. Banatao went on to chair or advise a long list of Silicon Valley's semiconductor companies, including Marvell Semiconductor, and later ran his own venture capital firm, Tallwood Venture Capital, funded entirely with his own money. Along the way, he became known as the father of semiconductors in parts of Silicon Valley and the Bill Gates of the Philippines back home. Titles that undersell how directly his early architecture decisions shaped the graphics and connectivity logic that every later generation of consumer chips, including the ones running in modern smartphones, had to build on top of. He never stopped pointing back home either, through the Philippine Development Foundation, which he co-founded and chaired, and through the Dado Banatao Educational Foundation and the Banatao Filipino American Fund. He spent decades funding scholarships and mentorship for Filipino engineering students on both sides of the Pacific, insisting publicly that talent was never the country's problem, only access to opportunity and world-class technology education. He died on December 25, 2025 at 79, after a battle with a neurological disorder. His own foundation's tribute described his work as having helped shape the modern personal computer, global data networking, and the smartphone industry that followed it. A rare case of an obituary making in plain language, a direct line between a Cagayan Valley grade school and the phone in your hand. Now zoom out for a second, because this isn't really a story about 6 companies and 1 biography. It's a story about how a country's usefulness to global technology can be enormous and completely invisible at the same time. Behind every name on this list is somebody whose work never shows up on a spec sheet. A quality inspector in Calamba deciding whether a batch of light sensors is precise enough to ship to a phone brand that will never mention where it came from. A technician in Cavite running the assembly line for the chip that controls how your phone charges overnight. A student on a PhilDev scholarship, decades after Dado Banatao walked barefoot to school, learning the same electrical engineering fundamentals that got him into a homebrew computer club meeting next to 2 kids who would go on to found Apple. None of these people are on a keynote stage. all of them are, in a very real sense, inside your phone. That's the tension sitting underneath every one of these 6 stories. The Philippines has built one of the deepest, most trusted assembly, testing, and packaging ecosystems on the planet. Precise enough that global brands trust it with cameras, sensors, and power management chips that, if they fail inside someone's pocket. But trust and execution isn't the same as ownership of design. The country captures a sliver of what these chips are actually worth because the intellectual property, the margins, and the brand recognition site somewhere else. The same imbalance that has defined outsourced manufacturing relationships for decades. Valuable right up until a customer decides it doesn't need you anymore. It's the same imbalance in a different industry that's shown up again and again whenever a country builds its economy on being extremely good at the part of the process that's hardest to see. The workforce that makes it possible rarely gets asked to speak at a product launch. The engineers who catch a defective batch before it ships rarely get a byline. And the country whose special economic zones quietly keep half the phones on Earth working never gets mentioned in the box the phone ships in. That doesn't make the work less essential. It just makes it easy to take for granted right up until a plant closes, a contract moves, or a company decides the next decade of assembly work belongs to Vietnam instead. That's not a hypothetical risk either. It's the same dynamic playing out right now in the Philippine electronics sector broadly. After peaking at 58.2% of total exports in 2020, the share of electronics in total Philippine exports had slipped to roughly 53% by the end of 2024, even as global chip demand kept climbing elsewhere. The government's response was to stand up a Semiconductor and Electronics Industry Advisory Council in 2025, explicitly built to push local manufacturers up the value chain, from testing and packaging into actual chip design, instead of staying permanently downstream of decisions made in Cupertino, Seoul, or Taipei. So here's what to actually watch if you want to see where this goes next. Watch whether that advisory council can turn assembly and test dominance into real design and IP work, because that's the difference between being essential and being replaceable. Watch which global brands keep expanding their Philippine footprint versus quietly shifting volume to Vietnam or Malaysia, the way so much of the region's electronics assembly already has. Watch whether the next generation of PhilDev-funded engineers ends up building companies instead of just staffing test floors. And watch whether the Philippines can turn Dado Banatao's story, one extraordinary individual who left and built something enormous somewhere else, into a repeatable pattern of people who build that something enormous from inside the country itself. Because right now, the Philippines has proven it can be trusted with some of the most sensitive, most precise work in consumer electronics. Camera sensors, ambient light sensors, power management chips, the connective tissue holding a smartphone together. What it hasn't fully proven yet is whether it can hold on to the leverage that should come with that trust, or whether it stays the quiet, uncredited layer underneath someone else's logo, the way it has for the last 50 years. A few decades ago, almost nobody outside the semiconductor trade was thinking about how a rice farmer's son from Cagayan Valley ended up shaping the chip logic in every home computer, and eventually every smartphone on the planet. Now it's the invisible thread running from a testing floor in Calamba, through a packaging line in Biñan, into a venture capital office in Silicon Valley, funded by a man who once walked barefoot to school. None of it looks connected until you trace the chip back far enough. All of it runs through the same archipelago. Is the Philippines actually positioned to move from assembling the world's phones to designing pieces of them? Or does it stay the reliable, invisible layer everyone depends on and nobody credits? That's the question I keep coming back to. And I genuinely don't know the answer. So tell me in the comments, if you had to bet on one country becoming the next Taiwan for chip design, not just chip assembly, who would it be? The Philippines? Vietnam? India? Somewhere nobody's even talking about yet?